We're joined on INSEAD Knowledge today by Warren Liu, the author of a new book called KFC in China. The secret recipe for success is the subheading. What is the secret recipe for the success of KFC in China?
That's the book. That's what the book is all about. Well, I will try my best to summarize it in a few minutes' time. I think some of those secrets are within KFC's control, or more accurately, within the control of KFC's parent corporation, in this case, Yum Brands. Some are not. Let me begin with the latter category. The factors which cause KFC's success in China, which are now within direct control of its corporate parent, I would say primarily is the context itself, that is the China market, and the very dynamic changes that we have heard about. In my case, I have been watching it for over 20 years, that propelled China from a developing economy to perhaps the high end of that spectrum. From a level of economic closeness back in the late 1970s to one that's open, to one that has been growing at an average annual compounded rate of 9.6% or thereabout, doubling the size of economy in terms of GDP every 7 years, and that has been going on for 30 years, as I said. So the context certainly provides the necessary ingredient for any foreign company's fast growth in their marketplace. And by entering the market early, in this case, KFC is actually the very first foreign fast food company entering China, in this case back in 1987. So the context and timing of entry certainly is a factor. Other reasons within KFC's control, I would say the leadership team, the founding leadership team in this case.
The Taiwan gang, as you
absolutely,
absolutely.
In the book, I'm not sure if it's a polite term, but it's a term that I chose to use to reflect the fact that I would say the majority of the leadership team at the beginning were people who were born and raised in Taiwan, educated in Taiwan. In some cases, who later then went abroad to further their advanced studies and work in multinational companies, in many instances fast food companies. In fact, on average, the early leadership team of KFC China had accumulated minimum of 10, sometimes 15 or even 20 years of fast food industry experience prior to landing in China for KFC. That factor, in combination with their intuitive knowledge of the market context, which in this case is very, very important, because I'm sure all of you have heard it said many, many times, China is different. And I know it's becoming a passé, but based on my 20 plus years of being there, watching it, doing things, having contact with the end users, having contact with government officers, having contact with partners, lead me to conclude that it is a very different market context. In order to be successful, especially for foreign companies or non-local companies, a deep understanding and a broad understanding of that market context is critical to success, to the extent that understanding is intuitive. Intuitive meaning that you don't have to do research, you don't have to have multiple meetings to come to the best solution to a problem, or to an issue, or to point to a future strategic direction. That is going to add to your probability of success, because in that dynamic, fast-changing market environment, speed becomes a factor of strategy, a factor for strategic success. The speed of coming up with the correct ideas, coming up with the best solution, and the speed with which you execute that decision, all over time, cumulatively contribute to your eventual relative success in that marketplace. So the characteristics, I hesitate to use the term quality because that connotes some kind of a formula. But the characteristics of the leadership team in terms of industry experience and intuitive understanding of that marketplace, I think is very important. And therefore the book actually begins with that.
Is that the advantage then that, say, KFC had over McDonald's? Because we've seen phenomenal growth of KFC in China. From, as you say, in 1987 it opened its first outlet in Beijing near Tiananmen Square. It then opened another 2,000 outlets over the next 20 years. And it has, if I remember correctly, it's got a 2-to-1 ratio over McDonald's in China, whereas outside China it's the other way around. So is it mainly due to those leadership factors that you mentioned? Perhaps also it's probably also to do with the food itself, the
Absolutely.
type of food.
Absolutely. I think leadership is a very important factor. In fact, the leadership factor drives many of the other factors, including the formulation of strategy and the execution of that strategy with speed. Let's just give a few examples. You mentioned product. Indeed, product localization is a very important part of the success formula of KFC in China as well. I think if you approach the average Chinese consumer who frequent fast food, they will probably be able to tell you that KFC delivers more local food styles than McDonald's does. They also tend to introduce new products more frequently than their competitors in China. And of course, the fact that KFC has its core chicken as the main offering also is a very natural advantage that fits this context very well.
So in a way it's quite fortuitous then.
In a way.
Its whole product line is essentially chicken, which is very popular with the Chinese as opposed to beef.
Yes. In fact, for Chinese consumers, the most preferred protein is pork, followed by chicken. Beef and mutton comes far after that. In that light, KFC has a natural advantage, if you would, over any other competitors that offer, let's say, beef burgers at its core product offering. But I certainly don't think that is the most important reason for KFC's success. Chinese consumers' preference, food preference, in this case chicken over beef, certainly is an important reason. But we also have to recognize that in the case of KFC, the company has done a lot of work in terms of continuously inventing new products and launching new products. Products that better fit Chinese consumers' taste preference.
As you say, it's localization. And I think in the book you refer to it as that KFC in China is basically American with Chinese characteristics.
That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah. I think many Chinese consumers do perceive KFC, the brand as such, as an American brand with Chinese characteristics.
One of the interesting things is that it hasn't really seen any major local competitor over the past 20 years. There have been competitors in Shanghai and so on, but no fast food chain nationally.
I think it's coming, and I think many of the potential entrants in terms of Chinese fast food potential entrants have been pondering over some of the key ingredients required of fast food success, which deals with food standardization, equipment standardization, setting, furniture, employee behavior standardization, all of which are pretty new to the Chinese enterprises and Chinese companies. The food habit of Chinese consumers also don't help with any Chinese company trying to offer authentic Chinese food. that can be duplicated hundreds of times, thousands of times, or even at a greater frequency continuously. But a lot of work has been done. In fact, just a month ago, I heard that there's now actually a robot subsidized by the Chinese government that can prepare up to maybe a dozen and a half different sort of famous, well-known Chinese dishes with speed and with excellent taste. And of course, knowledge engineering is part of the technology that facilitated this development.
Sorry, this is a robot.
It's a robot that cooks Chinese food fast, and the flavor of the outcome product is very, very good.
We've talked about KFC, we've talked about McDonald's, but there have been a lot of Western fast food chains that have tried to get into China and have failed. Why? What have been the key points? Is it down to the localization?
I think that's a very important factor. Localization across the board, from product offerings. For example, in the case of KFC, the product that sells the most from the beginning is not the original recipe chicken, but rather deep-fried, spicy chicken wing, for example, or spicy chicken burger. Neither of those two products originated in the home base, in this case, United States of America. So corporate encouragement for local innovation and corporate flexibility in permitting or even encouraging the emergence of local products to suit or better suit local consumer tastes is a very important factor. The localization management team, the localization of supply chain, which by the way is also a very important factor that has led to KFC success, all adds up. So I think localization is, in totality, various dimensions of that localization attempt does help for foreign companies who wants to be successful in China, because China is so huge and so complex, and in many ways so different from what we in the West are used to.
So those would be the major takeaways, as it were, from the book, about that foreign companies should learn, the key lessons that they should learn.
I would say, yeah, find a team that's most qualified, that has a deep understanding of the China context, not just the changes socially, economically, or politically, but China's history, China's language.
Now you have, as I see it, some inside information in terms of this book, because you did work for Yum Brands. So, but why did you decide to write the book?
Stuart, I actually waited 5 years after I left the company to write the book, because I knew many of my ex-colleagues wouldn't want me to write this book, simply because they are worried that too many secrets are revealed. Out of respect for them, in large part, I waited for 5 years before I started writing. I wrote this book, frankly, with the same motivation and intention with which I teach, and I teach for fun after I retired these days, to share my experiences. To share, in this case, the experiences of a company which has done very well in a market that many are not familiar with. And by sharing this company's experience and my involvement in that experience, I hope it will bring some enlightening references and productive actions for the readers.
Do you think that KFC in China can sustain the growth that it's seeing?
I hope so. There's nothing in life that guarantees success forever. And in the case of China market, it's a dynamic, fast-changing, relatively unpredictable marketplace. So in this kind of setting, it is more of a reason to have certain type of leadership characteristics that tend to be flexible, innovative, with a deep intuitive understanding of not just the current or the past, but the courage to predict the future and act accordingly. A lot depends on the evolution of that leadership team and the evolution and changes in China, the market, in the future. So I'm not in a position to make that prediction. I certainly hope the brand will. After all, I spent quite a few years building that brand, and to this day remain very proud of that association.
Warren Liu, author of KFC in China, Secret Recipe for Success. Thanks for joining us on INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you, Stuart.